everyone, welcome back to our very small 4-acre farm. We don't really know what we're doing with growing veg. As you might have known from last week, I'd only just worked out how to restore a greenhouse just over there, and I've got loads of seedlings growing. So this week I really want to make the most of the gorgeous weather. I actually feel like I'm on holiday. It was difficult to pick up the camera, but I know I want to fill these raised beds. Also, we want to grow some carrots, and I want to take your recommendation of using the old baths that we found to actually place them over there. So I've only found about 2 YouTube videos about growing veg in baths. So I've taken loads of notes. I'm going to be following it to the letter, but let me show you those baths that we need to fill. They're currently just piled up over here, out of the way, and they look pretty gross. And that is what we're dealing with. They're all different heights, but we're going to try and prop them up on some of these breeze blocks because we've got loads of these, so we can try and get them on a slant so any water drips through the drain, and hopefully enough space for buckets underneath, because I've heard it becomes liquid fertiliser and you can put it back. So we have been raking the land over there. That's one of the first things we want to do, and we've got loads of these branches. So we do want to hide some of these in the raised beds. I know a lot of you said, oh, you can't really do that, it's too shallow. I think we'll be all right with quite a few of the branches, not the really thick logs. We'll try and do some of that as well. Let me look at my agenda. Oh, yes. So we do want to lay some plastic sheeting around so we can put some mulch on top and underneath the baths, because there are the occasional bramble. There's definitely loads over there. So while we are growing stuff, we may as well try and suppress anything and then maybe reuse that plastic later on somewhere else. And you might remember we've been trying to get rid of all of the bramble crowns around this area because this was really, really bad. So once we've done a bit more, we're going to temper it down. We've done a fair bit and put a sheet down there as well. And hopefully we can hire a chipper at some point and then dump it there. We've got a load of gravel there. There's a lot actually around here, but you start thinking, is it better just to hire machinery? It would be a lot quicker, but there's a lot to sort out because we've got mixes of gravel all tumbled in with brambles. There's a mix of concrete. It is a mess, but I do fancy pinching some of this gravel for drainage at the bottom of the baths and for compost. You might be wondering, I've got a mix of multi-purpose right over there in bags. We've got less than 2.5 tonne now of this, what is called a soil improver. So I think mixing that, and also loads of rotten down pony muck over there. As I say, we're not experts, we're just having a go, and hopefully our seedlings will be robust enough to transplant them in. We won't be transplanting anything today. I just want to get everything prepped. And then while the seedlings are growing, that's a perfect time to go back into the house and then work on other projects we've got lined up in the house, because it's not all about gardening. To me, I want to be able to grow veg while I'm doing other things and have a nice balance. We're just experimenting, and hopefully I learn a lot on the way. And we might need 2 or 3 freezers. To stop the muddy mess and suppress weeds for now, I try to rake and level off the holes left from digging up bramble crowns, but keep finding more just below the surface. Then compact with a tamper before rolling out some landscape fabric and cutting up to the gate. Ooh, it's not easy. We also weighted it down with surplus breeze blocks and treated myself to some greenhouse stepping stones. And while it's out, I use it to suppress more weeds where my baths will go, while also trapping it under my raised bed. Although it didn't take long to find another bramble. Ooh, heavy stuff. Hopefully I've got no other brambles to poke through this. Now let's position those baths. Right, first thing I need to do is empty all of this stuff. Wow, there's a lot of this. Oh. Yeah. Keep it low down. So we're just putting them in situ for now to get an idea before we start propping them up and trying to get the spacing. I want enough width here so I can kneel down on this bit. For that, I'm fine, I think, with just to be able to walk down it. Yeah, it's going to be a bit higher, isn't it? Right, let's get the third one in. Right, so we're cutting to this point and then we'll start another row over there. So we've got concrete here and I want to cut it down to well, where the concrete finishes or starts. We've also moved the potato sacks out of the way temporarily, and then once we've cut this down, we'll put them back. I didn't really want to have to use plastic sheeting, but if you've seen previous videos, the brambles are everywhere and it's going to take a lot of time just to suppress them. I think it's nicer than using chemicals. Just move that out of the way. And now to get this in the right position along the fence, but also trying to trap it underneath these raised beds. So now we've got the baths down on top of the sheet, I'm going to do the job that I don't want to do, and that is bring some heavy breeze blocks and try and prop these up. Oh, that's not too bad. Honestly, who'd thought that gardening should involve steel toe cap boots? Okay, that will open, that can go there, I think. Yeah, that. It's because it's not flat. So it's the morning after, and this is what it looks so far. And the reason it's the morning after, even though I had loads of daylight yesterday, is because we couldn't agree on how to get it to look good, because, you know, we've got to try and polish a turd. So I've got an idea, but I've got to pause it while I order some materials. And the other thing is, instead of having these spacers, I think I can stretch over to the halfway point of the bath. So I think we're going to butt them all together. And I've also gathered more breeze blocks to raise it up to try and capture any of that drainage water. Once I've covered all the sides, I have considered painting the tops, but I don't know what food safe paint that I can use that will last out here. And I don't really want to be using spray paint. So before we push them together, we've got a jet washer. We're going to just clean them as best we can. I mean, I don't think it's going to come up perfect, because just look at it. Anyway, we'll crack on, raise them, push them together. While jet washing, I thought this was perfect for Mr TCD while I went to cut some wooden stakes using CLS and my miter saw for the 5 raised beds. I really need to replace this blade soon. It's not cutting as good as it used to. So I've got an array of very basic stakes. Stakes, if you buy them from the shop, I've noticed are £3.50 each. I've just been lazy and cut a V shape on my miter saw from offcuts and a full length of CLS structural timber. So this setup here is so I can char them all with propane, and we're going to go for this look, and it's meant to naturally preserve wood. So these are what I did before on the raised beds, and then I treated them with raw linseed oil. I don't think I'm going to bother with these. These are just, to me, sacrificial stakes that I'm going to char and then stick them in the corner and one either side, and I'm going to whack them in as best I can and then screw them in. Once they get tatty, I can replace them later on, and it's just to stop them bowing if they get really full and heavy with soil inside. That's the theory anyway. Turn it on, and I'm going to twist this nozzle just a little bit on tick over, so when I ignite it, it doesn't go like crazy. Yes, and I've got a trigger, so it should just jet out. So it might not look obvious here, but I've got a drainage problem. And I don't know if this is full of cement. I had to drill the cap out. In fact, you can probably see some of the drill holes. Yeah, it looks like this cement, and I need to drill more of that out. This one is not draining at all. It's one of those push ones, and I can't get it to move. It's probably seized up, so I need to dismantle it from the other side. Now that far end one's draining, I need to drill some holes in what I think is concrete, cement or something. So now I want to try and stack them more. Hopefully we can hide all of this mess as well. The wood packer is to create a slope towards the drain. And I had to add more to get all of the baths level at the back. Let's see if we've packed it enough so the water just drains to the hole. This one was the trickiest because it's on that side, so I've had to make it a little bit tilty, so it's not quite level at the back. So I think I'm happy with how that's draining. The next thing we need to do is try and get some mesh to cover over the plug holes so any gravel doesn't just fall out, and then fill it with the gravel that we know is around there where all the bramble mess is. So a mesh hunt, that might take us a while. Okay, so I'm struggling to find any kind of solid mesh. I've got a very old net that I bought years ago, or I could use this old chicken wire and fold it over a few times and then put some gravel and hopefully it'll stay in place. So that's what I'm doing. I'm cutting some of this. If you're wondering where this came from, it was actually a protective net thing above the pond years ago. Now I'm just getting an idea of what it would be like folded over, making sure that they cross paths, they're not folding in the same way. So once I've got that, hopefully I can fold it over like that. Yeah. Hopefully with enough crisscrossing, that's sufficient enough. So I've made it a big enough square piece to go over the drainage hole. So by the time gravel is on top, it's not going to move. This one definitely needed it because there's nothing there at all. And the same with that because you've just seen me take that out. So now apparently I need 5 centimetres deep of gravel in each bed, and I know just the place to get it. I might have got it stuck on the gravel, it's so heavy. Yeah, come on. Jesus. Oh, yay. Nice, that there's plenty of space between these beds for this. Move then. I just want to make sure I cover my mesh first. So now the bats are filled with gravel, instead of starting to put my branches and soil in there, I want to now put my wooden charred stakes in the beds to stop the sides from bowing. And I'm going to put them on the outside, but they are significantly longer than the bed itself, just so it can anchor down into the ground. Start with a mallet, then realise I needed to move on to a hammer for more force. Right, I'm going to screw that in. To protect the raised bed, I pulled out the excess membrane out from the inside, so the bottom of my bed won't be in contact with the soil. Come on. I just want it under this lip. I had a feeling. So today is a bit drizzly and grey, but I don't want to let it stop me. It's not pelting it down. Oh, and by the way, I am very happy with how the beds are, and they've all got supports in the corner as well. I didn't necessarily think it needed it, but I had the offcuts, and yeah, it makes it a bit more rigid. So today my plan is to try and cover these beds up, and the idea is to build a frame around it. Because they're all buttered together now as well, it would be easy to do this. And then I'm going to put some weed control over the top. Now, I didn't want to really clad it because it's extra expense. I want to save that wood for something else. And just to hide that, I just thought it was, well, a bit dear. So I have a plan of where I'm going to get my frame from, and it's over this way. So do you remember yesterday when I pinched that chicken wire? Well, I think this framework is perfect. I'm guessing it's really old, really old. That tells me it is treated somewhat, but it doesn't matter because it's just going to be on the outside of this bath. It's not going to be touching the soil. So I am going to, this time, use an angle grinder to cut off all the chicken wire. Then I'm going to dismantle it, offer some of the wood up to the length and width of the baths, and then do whatever I can to make mini frames around it and then staple some fabric, but also leave a bit of an opening where I can access any of that drainage water. So why I try and build a frame in the rain, Mr TCD is filling the raised beds with cardboard to suppress the weeds. And we need to overlap them as best we can so there's no gaps for weeds to come through. And if we see any sellotape and stickers, we've got to take them off. And once that's done, we're going to try and get some thin branches, put them on top and start shoveling in a mix of soil improver, pony muck with hopefully multi-purpose compost on top. So I've measured the length of the front end of the baths put together, and I'm going to go for 224. Now I try to unsuccessfully angle grind some screws in the way. Oh, it broke.
Let's try again, but this time I bypass the screwed wood. I can hide them. Then stack my top and bottom pieces and measure to get the height of my supports from the lowest part of the bath.
So 43 centimetres.
And cut pieces with a handsaw.
I can cover that up. You all right with that? Now I've got some sides and a back to do. These are getting harder and harder. And I'm getting more and more tired. And for the back frame, while I cut my length down, I'm skipping this so I don't have to have any awkward ends. Yay. 154. Wow. It's now pelting it down. I just had to race into the greenhouse and just wait for it to stop and have a sip of coffee. Well, I hope it stops. Oh, it's getting worse. Well, it's not stopping anytime soon, so I'm making myself useful while I wait. I'm separating some seeds. Okay, so it's still raining, but it's not as bad as what it was. But now I am at the stage of I want to cover up the framework with some weed control. It's just cheaper than using wood, and we might not use this forever, so I don't want to spend a lot. And I'm going to put this on all over the frames and then screw the frames together. This is the most heavy duty I could find for about 15 quid, and there is 14 metres. I think I've got enough. Woo! Oh, and now it's windy. I'm going to lay the frame on, cut it down roughly, and staple it. And cross my fingers it doesn't break on me again. There. Ah. Yeah.
My battery-powered work stapler couldn't seem to handle the wet wood, so I used onto my manual Stanley one, but it does require 2 hands, and there's a neck to it.
You know what, we started off with gorgeous weather at the beginning of this week, and now it's just cold, and it's been wet and miserable, and it's very cloudy. I'm hoping the sun comes back, and my gloves are still wet from yesterday, but anyway, the frame is now coming together. I've started to screw it from this end, and that's with a long screw and a washer, so the fabric doesn't fray. I'm then going to go over to the other side, and I've had to fix it about 6 inches lower from the top because I tried 3 times above and hit an old screw from this frame. I've got a random selection of washers, so I'm trying to go with the bigger ones. Whoa, slippy. And I'm going to add some hinges on this side, joining those two together, and then hopefully I'll be able to open this. I might have to dig some of this soil out if it's protruding. I could do with a catch. What? What's the matter? Is this not good enough? Is that what you're saying? You're saying that's rubbish, Mum. What can I use as a temporary catch?
While I ponder on a DIY catch, I add another hinge in the middle.
So now I know it opens okay. I've now ordered 2 cabin hooks so I can hook that closed because it just wants to do that at the moment. And you probably hear Mr TCD is using the pressure washer because he's been removing soil over there. Hopefully it'll get to wash this away and it'll look so much better. And you can see how my lines match up. But you know what? I think I've polished a turd enough. Nice. And to get a perfect square, I sacrificed this little gap here. So I might hide a few things in there and maybe add a bit of a lip. I think that's the motto of this video. It'll do. And as you know, I've got gravel in them. Let me talk about what I'm going to fill them with. This one is solely going to have a base layer of gravel. Then I'm going to fill it up to the top with soil because I'm growing carrots in this. I don't want any barks and things like this. Sorry, lad. But obviously with logs and stuff, I'm not going to be growing root vegetables in these. But Mr TCD has got me a wheelbarrow full of soil here, so I'm just going to fill these 2. This is going to take some time. Hello.
I rake the soil level, but then add more cardboard to prevent any possible weeds.
Right, I have a bucket of water to wet the cardboard. Yes, you'd think I'd use a hose, wouldn't you? But I can't because it's attached to a pressure washer with some Karcher chemicals. I don't want that on my bed. So I'm doing it the hard way. So now I'm adding green waste compost.
And a bit more raking before adding a final layer of multi-purpose compost.
It said it wasn't going to rain all day, and it's raining.
After a good session of jet washing, we've gained a new driveway we weren't even aware of.
So it's chucking it down again, but I've been looking forward to doing this all week, and that is creating a hinged hooped house lid on top of some of my raised beds. Now I've got a clear plastic cover that I want to put on top of one of them to extend the growing season, because I have a lot of courgette seedlings that are growing. Anyway, the first thing I'm going to do is create a frame for the top for my hinged lid. I thought I'd just tell you that now while I'm dry under shelter. So I'm using 38 by 63mm CLS for the frame, and I'm lining it up on my shortest end first from one end to the other to get my pencil mark of where I want to cut it. And just in case these aren't square, I'm going to check the other side as well. Yeah, that's fine. And before I cut those all together, I know that I need 2 of these, one either side, so I'm just going to put it in line with the edge of that. Then another one. Then I'm going to get another straight edge piece that I'm going to be using for the sides, pushing it up against that. Then by the time I get to this end, this is my cut for the 2 lengths. Let's go and cut them on the miter saw. So with the offcuts that I had for the longest pieces, they're exactly 2 foot. So I'm going to mark the centre of my shortest end and position them on the inside of this. 62 and a half, 62 and a half. So my 2 short sides are done. Now I need to pre-drill and screw from each of the ends, and then I can screw the longer pieces together to form a square, well, a rectangle. So now I want a support piece that runs between the top of these top posts, but I don't want to take the measurement from the top because it's going out slightly. So I'm going to slot this underneath the frame and get my pencil mark. There. Now I need to cut that. Oops, and don't drop your pencil. It feels like a giant caddy handle. Now this project was inspired by quite a few different people and Huw Richards. Now one thing that he did do, which I have thought about it, is using a flatwood drill bit to drill holes as you go along for the poly pipe. But because I might change my mind on how rigid it is, I am going to use these clips instead. And I'll start off in this corner. As the pipe goes in, it will hit my lip, and I'll add another screw at the top for insurance. And then I'll add them every 40 odd centimetres. But luckily I found this scrap piece of pipe already here, so I'm going to get this to the right length and then use that as my template. Yeah, that went in. Right, let's go on the other side. I'm going to temporarily screw this to the wood because I don't want it ripping out my other screws. So I'm going to cut a bit off first to make it more manageable to measure. I'm cutting it down to there. Yeah, turns out my speed fit type pipe cutters work. Question is, do I need some more off? Yes, I do. That is enough. So there's a smidgen room here, probably about 5 mil, but by the time I put a screw over there, covering the sharp edge, that should be fine. So this is going to be my template piece, and I'm going to cut a few, but I need to measure now. What I'll do is put the other pipe clips on the ends, measure the distance and divide it by 40 centimetres or something like that to find out what I've got. Now I can offer them a template up to the actual pipe so I can cut it down to what I need. Oh, it's awkward. So I'm going to have to keep holding it as I go. Don't move, don't move, don't move. Right, stay put there.
screw the pipe clips equally, ensuring they match on both sides.
So for the end one, I'm having this overhang slightly so the plastic doesn't catch on the edge of the wood. And I'm going to pre-drill and go on a bit of an angle. That is rigid.
And repeat for the other pipes, mounting them to the top support.
So I found a couple of slats to add extra supports inside. So I am going to put it along the top rail, line it up with the end. And then when I get to the other end, I can mark with a pencil where I need to trim it down. And I've got 2 identical cuts to do. I offer up a jig, which is 40 centimetres long, then I know where to drill my hole. Then I can thread the wood through, line up with the screw holes and screw the pipe to the wood in each one. Now because I've taken some time to build this, I want it to last, so I'm going to treat it with a wood preservative and leave it to dry. This isn't going to be touching any of the soil, so I should be okay. Now, do you remember a few weeks ago when I went like this in front of these barns and I hit concrete? Yuck. Well, according to a neighbour, this is where the previous owner would dump her pony muck. And there's a lot of grass and stuff in it as well, but we still want to use it. So we're going to dig it up, chuck it in the beds, but we need to put quite a few layers of cardboard down to suppress what is here. It would take us far too long to riddle all of this. But when it comes to the carrot bed, I have to filter everything because I don't want knobbly carrots this year. Anyway, let's get shoveling. Can you see it's very brown and there's quite a lot of worms here. So it's definitely mature and it's got to be nutritious. It's like a wormery. There's worm after worm after worm. And we get some more hard standing back. I'm looking forward to that. It's good stuff over here. Ooh.
After adding a 10 centimetre layer of it in each bed, it's time for the soil improver.
These are just the right height to tip. It's great.
We'll also be adding a layer of multi-purpose compost on top, but we need to go out and buy some more.
So now comes the time to find out whether my plastic sheeting that I bought from B&Q actually fits. This is 2 metres by 10 metres. To be honest, I just thought let's get this sorted first rather than struggling trying to work out whether this would fit. I should have done it the other way around, but I had an awful fear last night that it wouldn't. So I went on Amazon and bought a backup, which is 3 by 4 metres, but it's a clear tarp with a white woven string inside. Hopefully I've got something that fits. And it's a really windy day. It's not what I need. I've got a couple of clamps just in case. First I'm going to shake it out, drape it over the top to see if it fits. Then I'll start cutting some wooden trim to fix it in place at the side of my frame. It also doesn't feel the thickest. The other one is definitely thicker. Really long and folded in half. Woo! God, it's awkward. Yeah, get another clamp. After a bit of a fight with the plastic and the wind, I've calmed down a little bit now because we both evened it out, making sure we had the same overhang on each side and clamped it in 4 corners. So we've got an overhang here that I will trim down. That's given me more than enough to cut off and play with. So this is where the rest of the roll is. So I'm going to cut off what I need so it's more manageable.
I take some trim to rip down while screw to some pallets because it's unnecessarily wide and cut with my handy compact saw. And once I've got 2 bits out of that, I unscrew it, take it to my hoop house to measure up the longest side and handsaw the trim down to that length. Now it's ready to secure the plastic to the frame.
So while I was working out the best way to fasten my sheet down with my trim, I've just noticed this. There's a tear there already. In fact, there's a line that goes that way, an impression, and I don't know where that's come from. So I'm not sure I would recommend this stuff as such. I don't know if it was me or what, I've no idea. But we're going to have to take this off and recut it because that is in a weak spot that could go that way. That's not a good start. So I've ripped some trim down with my little compact saw because what I want to do is wrap the plastic sheet around my timber and then nail it or screw it to the frame. So if you come round here and I'll show you. So my idea is I'm going to rest my timber on my little lip so it can keep it steady for me. And I'm going to line the edge of my plastic up with my piece of new trim, staple it and then wrap it underneath and then fix it to this frame. Making it as taut as possible as I go. Right, now I'm hoping by the time I fold it over like that and line it with the bottom, there's still plenty of overhang over there, which I'm hoping there is. So now I've got it rolled underneath and I know that water isn't going to trap anywhere. I want to fix the trim to the frame itself. So I'm lining the edge of my wood to the edge of my frame. Now what I would like to use is really long clout nails with a big head, but I can't because I don't have any. So I'm going to pre-drill a series of screws and use screws with washers. So it goes straight through this end of the plastic and straight through to the wood. Also, I need to point out, this is going to be my hinge side. So I want this trim to definitely kiss this lip here. In an ideal world, my plastic would be longer so I could keep wrapping it around several times, but it's not. So I'm doing exactly the same staple technique on this side, but it doesn't need to have any hinges here. So when I do staple from one end to the other, I can roll it up on the inside, make it taut and screw it to the frame. So now I've stapled this on, I can wrap it underneath again on the inside. And this time I can push it down to make it taut. And I need to also make sure it's in line with the edges. That seems okay. I'm going to pre-drill and screw that in. Now, as I put the rest of them in, I want to also pull this taut and push this down. But I'm going to do this one gently first, then that one, because if I try and lower this one down, because it's pivoting here, that one is raising. So I need a balance.
For the ends, I patiently pleat and staple the excess as tightly as possible, starting from the centre and work my way outwards, folding a small bit at a time. But it really helps to cut down any excess off if it's bunching on the floor.
So I've got some trim and I'm going to screw it to the frame and then cut this excess off. And now I can trim off the excess with a Stanley knife. So to add the hinges, there's two ways I could do it. Because I've added some trim, I could add another piece of trim, like a block here, so when I pull it over, it's all in line. But I've decided not to do that. I've decided to sacrifice a bit of an overhang over there to make these completely in line. And then I'm going to offer up my hinges. I'll put two, one either side, screw those in, and then I'll put a handle on the front and I can tip it over. One slip with this plastic and it's game over. The other stuff looks better, but if you have any link recommendations, let me know, please. I've got 4 more to do and I won't be using this again. Maybe on smaller projects, but not this. So the final thing I need to do is add a handle. I've got it central. So I hope it works. Let's see. In fact, shall we get a prop? We'll get a prop. I'm not relying on this prop though, in case it slips. Ready? Oh, nice! Oh, that's exactly why the plastic was in there. Apart from the plastic is flimsier than I was hoping for, because you don't know until you open the packet, I'm happy with everything else. Oh, and word of warning, don't stain it while it's all built, otherwise your husband might be moaning because you can't get it off the pipe, and I couldn't be bothered to get it off. But this is our very first one, so I've learned quite a few things. Next time I'll treat all the wood beforehand and I'll just use better plastic. I will test this a little bit, but yeah. We've just got to be very careful with it because I've still got to put plants in here. But let me know if you do anything differently. I'm sure there's plenty of things. I just need to plant my courgettes in there. So the next thing I want to do, but off camera because you've seen this already, is add more tops for the beds. I will be buying some insect type net for the brassicas and things and fill this bed here, because I need to sieve the soil for my carrots. So I will be having a week off next week to do all of this, but I will be back next Sunday with a special unboxing. I don't know if you can guess what it is, but I can't wait. Anyway, hopefully I'll catch you soon and you have a great Easter. Thanks for watching. Bye.